welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 Hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Psycho for the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you're not listening to Wes over on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. You should be reading O2's work over on the Detroit Free Press, and shameless plug, the Motor City Hoops Substack, where I put out some video breakdowns of NBA draft prospects and potential offseason acquisitions. And today we are joined, YouTube user hits it nail on the head, says, is this early? This isn't possible with Sam. We are right on time. We are 2 minutes past scheduled recording. We crushed it here. We are joined by Sam Vecenie of the Game Theory podcast, which I have the pleasure of joining almost every day right now, it seems like, between offseason previews and NBA Finals recaps and NBA draft coverage. And I have a blast with it. Of course, of The Athletic, the draft guide. Sam, how you doing?
More than anything, I'm just impressed by the intro. It's so kind to you guys. You have these beautiful, piano keys hitting in the background. Bryce gets to talk about being a great father. I just say, Bryce, what's going on? And we just get into it. This is so much more professional over here.
Bryce is a great setup, man. I'm chiming in with my name, but he just sets the scene so perfectly. We have the smooth jazz coming in, and it's just like a very light, very relaxing vibe. I feel like that's kind of what we're going for. I don't know if we ever talked about that, but that is the vibe that I feel like we established.
I like the intro music. I will say Game Theory has a nice intro video. Kai Jones gets some love over in that one. And as that intro video is going, I start to think about what is the first thing I'm going to say when Sam brings me on, because I haven't thought of that yet. And some days something really fun comes to me, and some days I'm like, oh shoot, I don't know what I have. I will also say right now, I'm not a father of 3 amazing kids. I'm a father of 1.5 amazing kids. I think with Laz last week, it was 2, and today it's 1.5. These kids are stressing me out. I agree. YouTube user, your intro video is great, Sam. I agree with that. And Harry says, what up, though? Get him. So we brought on Sam today because, one, Sam does not only cover the NBA draft, he covers the NBA at large. We've done a Pistons offseason preview. I highly recommend 40 to 45 minutes of straight Pistons talk. I think it's one of the most viewed over on the Game Theory podcast YouTube channel. Please go subscribe over there. Strong course to 50,000 subscribers over on Game Theory. So he covers the NBA at large. We talk about it at large. So we're going to do that. And then we are going to talk about the draft guide and Pistons prospects. Sam, let's start off here. I always want to go back just a little bit. We're not going to go back to last offseason. You can touch on that a little bit, but let's at least recap so we get a vibe of where you're at this Pistons season, what you thought of it. And so that leads us into where they're at right now.
Yeah, great. I loved it. I loved watching it. I loved every second of it outside of Jaden Ivey getting hurt, right? This is what, you and I on our show have been begging for I feel like 2 years now, was literally just surround Cade with shooting. See what it looks like, right? It's funny. I'm doing a thing for The Athletic right now where I go through and rank my top 20 prospects of the last, the last top 20 prospects in the draft of the last 10 years is what it is. And I have Cade Cunningham, I think at 4. And there was never a point where I thought it was Cade's fault that he felt somewhat disappointing for people by not necessarily being the, best player in his draft class up until last season, right? That was a real debate. You and I, Bryce, we talked about the fact that we would have taken him over Scotty Barnes coming into last season, but that's another conversation for another day. But going out, bringing in Malik Beasley, bringing in Tim Hardaway Jr., bringing in a coach that wasn't asleep at the wheel and looked like he was about to take a nap in the middle of games. That is always really valuable. So going out and having a competent roster around Cade was always the key to me. And going out and getting JB Bickerstaff as well, letting him implement a genuine defensive identity, not one that was kind of fake and full of bravado with, oh, we're going to play Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey, like silliness or whatever. This is the kind of defensive culture and infrastructure that you have to build if you're trying to build a winner. And I think that the JB Bickerstaff hire is clearly one of the best of the offseason last year.
Real quick, O2, before you ask Sam your question, I just want to say, Sam, there's been a lot of conversations with these offseason previews we've been doing with teams that are in the position Detroit was last season. And how often do we talk about vet presence, shooting, floor spacing, all of that, right? Like it's not just a Detroit thing. It's a rebuild type of thing where teams have to value those things. And it took Detroit too long to do so. I just wanted to add that in because it's kind of clicked with me whenever we're doing the Wizards and it's like, okay, well, if we trade Corey Kispert, we better get him a different shooting and floor spacing and stuff like that. So I wanted to get that in there, O2, before you ask Sam your question.
No, and just to kind of build off of what you said about the improvements, Sam, this is, I want to phrase this correctly. Do you feel like this season was more about the job JB was able to do to kind of corral this roster and get a hold of it? Or was it almost more of an indictment on what happened the year before, with the previous coaching staff? Did it maybe kind of change your opinion of how bad they were last year? Or did you think this team really just exceeded expectations because of what the coaching staff came in and did?
Honestly, I think it's a combination of everything. Like, I don't know that I can pinpoint one thing. I mean, it was so bad. You know what I mean? You look at what Monty Williams was doing the year before. Again, like I make the joke that he was asleep and looked like he was about to take a nap at halftime, but he just didn't look all that active as a head coach. And frankly, he got fired from Phoenix and it took serious pushing from Tom Gores and the ownership group for him to come out of, getting his buyout from Phoenix essentially to get this massive contract, right? Like they essentially paid him so much money that he was like, I can't do this. I can't not do this. You know what I mean? So I think of it that way. And obviously, JB is a massive upgrade there in terms of the culture and the infrastructure that he built. I really think we can't overlook the upgrade that Trajan Langdon is over Troy Weaver. Troy Weaver was probably the worst GM in the league, I would argue at that point. I don't even know there was an argument at that point. It felt like teams were really trying to take advantage of him in certain deals. Going out and getting Trajan Langdon is a massive, massive improvement. Even just in terms of they feel way more buttoned up now, talking to people around the league, they feel way more competent and sharp in terms of what their goals are, what they're trying to build. They have this overarching plan as opposed to trying to accumulate talent. They're trying to accumulate talented players that fit together within what they're trying to build organizationally. I felt like when Weaver was there, it was mostly, let's just take the most athletic and talented guy on the board and we'll figure it out. Can't build a basketball team that way. I'm sorry. You just cannot build a basketball team that way, especially when your primary playmaker is a guy in Cade Cunningham that needs space to operate. So I really think we can't overlook the important, massive, massive improvement that was Trajan Langdon getting this job. I thought he had an outstanding offseason last year.
Michael says, I look forward to each day at noon to hear the offseason guests for each organization. So talking about game theory again, we've recorded 27. We've technically recorded 28. We have to re-record the Knicks ones because we silly recorded that before Tom Thibodeau got fired. But go check those out, guys, if you have any interest in any other team other than Pistons. But obviously the Pistons one as well if you haven't. Let me ask you this, Sam. Other than Cade and him being all NBA and all of that, who was Andrew Claudio, GMAC. Shout out to the Lost Knicks episode that will never ever be heard of. Sam, who was the other player? If I could, one other player on the roster that really impressed you this season, maybe surprised you, grew the most. I don't necessarily want you to answer Malik Beasley because obviously he had a crazy season. Yeah. I'm more asking the younger guys Asar, Duran. We didn't get all of J.I. Was Ron Holland a little bit better as a rookie than you thought he would be? Is any of those guys stand out a little bit?
Ron was definitely better than I thought he would be as a rookie. But I mean, there are still flaws there. You know what I mean? I think Asar looks like a real difference maker in a tangible way. To me, he looks like he's going to be an all defense guy for a long time at this point. He's going to max out on that ceiling that we thought he had entering the NBA draft, which is huge for the Pistons moving forward. I think Jalen Duren got better on defense throughout the course of the year. I'll at least note that. I've long been extremely skeptical of Jalen Duren on that end, but he showed
in the playoffs too.
Yeah, he showed genuine improvement on the defensive end, which I think is important, especially given that they're entering a summer where they have to make a very important contract decision on Jalen Duren. I still probably wouldn't extend him yet. I would want to play that out unless I can get him on like a very, very team-friendly number, but I digress. The other guy I'll call out here is Isaiah Stewart's just continued growth on the defensive end, to where if he had played, I guess that he played enough games, but if he'd gotten enough minutes, I thought he genuinely deserved some real, all defense team potential love. He was awesome on that end of the court. He's physical. He's tough. He really brings an edge. He is all sorts of just very, very versatile in who he can guard and the different kind of screen coverages you can run. He's really sharp with his angles and drop coverage, particularly. Like there's just a lot that you can do with Isaiah Stewart that I think made their defense really go this year, especially in bench units.
How much did they miss him in the playoffs?
Enormously. I think they win the series if he doesn't, miss the series, honestly.
GMAC, please chime in.
I've said that like since it was happening. I mean, those games were so tight. If you have a guy that can genuinely guard Karl Towns for 25 minutes in a game, it completely changes the complexion of the series to me.
I was just going to give a shout out to our guy, Koo, here from Locked On Pistons. Make sure you guys are checking that out as well. Koo, I know you saw that Trey Murphy III video breakdown I did, so you wanted to check in case we were talking about Trey. And I know Koo's a big Trey Murphy III fan as well. GMAC, don't get it started. It's okay. We love you. O2, what do you got? Any other questions about this season before we move ahead to the offseason a little bit in terms of what their path should be and stuff like that?
Nothing major. We're going to kind of get into more of like the roster and stuff like that. But, I did kind of want to get into like specifically coming out for this season. Who are the guys we are most excited about? You called out Isaiah Stewart. You called out Asar, especially as they have to start paying guys. Like in your mind, who are the maybe other two guys, if you have to prioritize some guys right now that you would want around Cade long term?
I don't even know that this is the guy that it probably is the guy I'm most excited about, but he's definitely the guy I'm most excited about to talk about here. It is definitely Jaden Ivey, right? Ivey, I thought, had really started to turn the corner prior to his injury and looked awesome. He looked really, really good. And it looked like he and Cade were really starting to figure out how to play off of one another a little bit more consistently. So he's probably the answer here. I think he is the highest. I mean, maybe if Asar's like shooting comes together in some way, he would have to have the highest ceiling, but I'm skeptical of that. Like, I think that Ivey's ceiling is still incredibly high. I thought he got a little bit better defensively this season. I thought that he, continues to showcase real improvements as a catch and shoot player. I've always loved him playing off of Cade. Like I remember Bryce and I, when he got drafted, like we talked a lot about the fact that him playing off of Cade is like almost his ideal role, where he can just be the scoring threat. He has this awesome distributor next to him, and he can take advantage of different marginal inefficiencies that a defense is presenting him by attacking closeouts, by being able to consistently play as like a second side ball handler where he's getting the ball and the defense is a little bit bent already. He covers ground so quickly with his first step, and he's so explosive that's really, to me, where he can thrive is next to Cade Cunningham. So I'm still very high on Jaden Ivey. I think that he's going to be a 20-point per game scorer, and I'm really, really excited to see kind of where this whole thing kind of lands with him as they have to make a big extension decision this summer.
Yeah. So, all right, Koo asked a question about Ivey. The 3-point shooting, you mentioned the catch and shoot while his percentages everywhere else remain the same. So do you have concerns with that in terms of finishing at the rim and anything in the mid-range and stuff like that?
Especially the finishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the finishing is a real concern for sure. He has to really improve, I think, his footwork and his gathers getting to the rim as much as anything. Like I thought early on in his career with Detroit, it was just all 100 mile an hour. Right. And then throughout the course of his rookie season, you could see some marginal, like, okay, at the first level of ball screens, I'm going to show that I can at least like stop, maintain an advantage, keep a guy on my hip, and at least slow the game down that way. Where I think he needs to continue growing is being able to like decelerate on the interior, right? Being able to use like a slow step. These guys that are incredibly explosive, the cool thing about them, Donovan Mitchell being a prime example of this, is that once they figure out that slow step, it works even better than it does for the super slow guys a lot of the time because of how explosive they are. I mean, look, Jaden Ivey had 49% of his shots at the rim this year in half court settings, according to Synergy. Like, it's real bad. Like, it's very, very bad. He needs to improve it, but there's no reason to think that he can't improve it, in my opinion. He has all of the tools. He does just really have to work on the gathers, the deceleration, and the ability to like utilize Euro steps, utilize below the rim finishes, absorb contact. Like he's a strong dude. He's physical. He's willing to play through contact. I think that the tools are there. He just needs to kind of work through the developmental cycle of being able to utilize them.
I want to go back to Asar because we had a couple questions. So Dax Hoops Hack asked if Asar goes through his whole career shooting sub 25% from three, is he still a viable starter in the playoffs? And then YouTube user, what do you think Asar ends up getting on his rookie extension? I think he asked like percentage of the cap wise. So those two questions back to back there paired together for Asar.
I mean, rookie extension, he'll make 9 figures. I don't know. It's going to depend on this year. So much will depend on the offensive growth this year for Asar. But I feel comfortable at this point saying he's a 9-figure guy. Definitely. In terms of can he be a starter, a viable, like, closing player in the playoffs without the jump shot, right? I think the answer is yes, but I think you have to be very intentional about how you build the team, if that's the case. And again, like this is stuff that Bryce and I talk about all the time with Jalen Duren, particularly. Like I always feel like Asar and Jalen Duren rotate into the same areas offensively. They relocate into the same areas. They tend to flash to the middle at the same time a lot of the time. They will sit in the dunker spot and Duren will sit there, and then Asar will be trying to back cut into that area and Duren will be there as opposed to lifting to the foul line all that quickly. Like it could be a situation where like the chemistry and the synergy just like figures itself out on some level and they figure out how to play together better. But I think that if you're going to use Asar, if he's never going to improve at all as a shooter, it's probably going to have to be next to a spacing center, if I'm being honest. And like, I want that. Like, I think he's a more valuable player than Jalen Duren, if I'm being honest, in a playoff setting. So I'm willing to go down that road. Like, I'm the one making concessions for Asar as opposed to making concessions for Jalen Duren, in my opinion. Like, I'm trying to make it work more with Asar and work around his skill set and what matters to him, as opposed to what matters with Duren and how to make him thrive, even though it's a little bit easier, honestly, to make Duren thrive, I think, given that you already have Cade Cunningham there.
So real quick follow-up. What if Duren, I don't think any of us here are going to predict Jalen Duren spacing to the three-point line. What if I told you Jalen Duren developed a really good float game and mid-range jumper? Do you think him being able to play in that area of the floor and score successfully and efficiently from those areas of the floor would be enough to kind of open up that offensive space for them to work together at the highest level that they would need to, and what we're talking about here?
Especially with his playmaking as well.
Correct.
We saw some of that in the playoffs too.
Yeah. Yes. The answer is yes, but he would need to become so freaking good at it, man. Like the standard there would have to be incredibly, incredibly high without the threat of the jumper, like at least from three. I'm a little bit hesitant to assume that he can get there, I think. Look, he did like take like a few floaters this year for sure. Like it wasn't like an every game occurrence, but like I felt like I saw a couple there where he would just like kind of like float one up there at the basket. The passing, I mean, look, like he showed passing flashes at Memphis. It's just never been consistent. That's always been my issue. Like the flashes are always there with Duren's like skill level. It just doesn't always feel like it's, brought every single game to the equation. And, a huge part of the NBA is being able to back it up every single night. You know what I mean? Like so many dudes, probably every player in an NBA rotation can go and get 20 every night. It's just that they can't do it every night. Right. And that stands true to these skill sets too. You know what I mean? Like, can you do it when a defense is playing you this way? Can you do it when a defense is playing you that way? Like, to me, it's a very, very complicated ask. I think it's not impossible though. I don't think the question is invalid. I think it's a completely reasonable question. I think it's probably a difficult ask though.
Mr. Ray says like a Hartenstein floater. Mr. Ray, nobody has the floater like Hartenstein. That floater is nice.
But that's probably what it has to be though. If we're just saying that that's the skill set without the 3-point jumper, without like, I don't know, man. Like, do you feel great when he puts the ball on the floor?
I want no more Jalen Duren grab and go. I have said that a lot. In the half court, in a straight line, it's a little better. But you are, like, to your point, though, the guys we really think about that are real threats with that are Hart. Zubac this year, I feel like, got really good in the short roll, but like they are kind of elite at it. But the ones that are elite at it are the ones we talk about being threats with it. So it almost is like the threshold has to be elite for it to matter. And I think that's kind of the point you were making.
Yeah, Pirtle's really good at it, I would argue, but Pirtle's often like driving to the rim off of the short roll, right? Like, honestly, I would say Zubac is often driving to the rim off of the short roll too. Duren, I don't know. Like, I feel like he doesn't really drive to the rim all that often off of short rolls. Like, he's trying to stride out and get there, like, and hope that nobody's in his way.
His drive to the rim are like top of the key. There's balanced action, stuff's going on, and he decides to attack his man. So, all right, we got to go to break. When we come back, we will look a little more into off-season stuff now. Like, what you just brought up, stretch bigs. Are there ones out there that maybe that this team could go and acquire? So we'll get into those conversations and then eventually transition to the draft right after this.
All right, we are back with segment 2. Sam, at the beginning of the offseason, the Pistons signaled that they would be open to bringing players back. Trajan Langdon went on record, and, of course, they have Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Dennis Schroeder all play big roles, all going to be unrestricted free agents. There's 2 paths that they could kind of go. They could, re-sign THJ and Schroeder with bird rights, and then see if you can get Bees with the $14.1 billion bid level, if that's where you value them. Or there's other guys around the league, maybe Bobby Portis or, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, that you could pursue with that bid level exception. If you're in the GM chair, what would your ideal Pistons offseason be? Do you bring everybody back, or are there some guys out there on the open market that you would kind of want to go for instead?
It's hard, man. Like, I think my ideal would be to try and run it back on like 1-year deals, but I just don't know how feasible that is at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, is there a chance that you could do it where you stay over the cap, try to give Beasley most of your mid-level, and then maybe like go and trade for Bobby Portis? Cause I don't know what Portis is going to do with his player option, to be honest with you. Like, that's like right on the borderline for me. And he would be anticipating in Milwaukee next year, stepping into a massive role potentially, where it's like, well, maybe I can, springboard this and be able to go, all right, I'm going to stay in Milwaukee and I'm going to, set myself up for free agency the following year when more teams have cap space, right? So, maybe there's like a potential, you trade for Bobby Portis and then extend him, in 6 months off of a certain number, right? That makes sense for everybody. Like, you could do like 15 a year or something. But if you do that, then, I probably don't want all of Bobby Portis, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren. Like, that's just a lot of bigs that don't pass the ball ever, really. Duren sometimes shows the flashes, as we just talked about, but it's not a lot of ball movement coming from the front court there, which is a little bit worrisome. So I don't mind the Portis idea, because like we've talked about, getting a spacing big in there that can really, really work. I think he's probably the most feasible option. Brook Lopez would be another one. I kind of like the Brook Lopez idea. I don't know how feasible it is that he would come to Detroit necessarily, but I like the Brook Lopez idea a little bit, just because it's a short-term deal and you're getting like essentially like a proving ground for what a floor spacing big looks like with Cade. Maybe you come to find that he's better with a rim runner as opposed to like a pick and pop big, right? Or maybe you come to find out that no, Cade's finishing takes like a big leap if he is surrounded by a real, floor spacing pick and pop 5. I think there's just like, I'm still using next year with the Pistons almost as a, proving ground on some level, because if they decide not to extend some of these guys like Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, you have next season to try and figure out what they are, really, and who the best guys are with Cade. You have the dude now. I kind of want to see, kind of how all these guys work. If you extend Duren and if you extend Ivy on team friendly deals, great. And you bring back, probably maybe Tim Hardaway Jr., probably more likely to be Malik Beasley, I would guess, given the year that he had, figure out whatever the secondary ball handler situation is going to be. Maybe it is just, you expect Jaden Ivey to be back and everything's going to be sweet. You don't have to bring back Dennis Schroeder necessarily. I'm certainly going to explore the marketplace, see what's out there via trade. Obviously, I have all my picks moving forward. I feel like I'm in a really strong position with Cade Cunningham now to where I'm probably not picking in the top 10 anytime soon again, given the strength and actual weakness of the Eastern Conference, really. I'm willing to explore what's out there using the Tobias Harris expiring deal, using, a number of different options. But if they just run this back, I'm totally good with that too. Like, I think that they're in like a weird position where as long as they don't overpay a lot of their guys for a long term, I think that they're basically in like a no-lose situation in their offseason.
Quick follow-up. Would you put Malik Beasley sort of in that same tier of guys who are probably going to get that mid-level one way or another? Obviously, he was really underpaid last season at $6 billion, became fourth guy to hit 300 threes. Where would you value him going into this offseason?
It's hard because like another thing that I do like genuinely believe, especially for smaller market organizations, is you do want to take care of the people that perform well for you. Like it's not just like a karma thing. Like it gets around the league. Like, hey, Detroit takes care of its guys. We want to make sure that we're the kind of organization that we're building that takes care of our guys that play well, right? Do I think Malik Beasley is worth the mid-level, like the full mid-level? I don't. I probably would not want to pay Malik Beasley the full mid-level at the end of the day. I'd probably be willing to give him 10 though. I'd probably be like maybe 446, something like that, and leave like a little bit left over, for a second round pick that maybe you have to overpay instead of using like a second round exception in order to get him. 460 is a big number for me with Beasley because that's ultimately what the full mid level is. And I'd probably not want to pay the full mid level for Beasley, I think.
I want to go back to the stretch big stuff a little bit, Sam. So Ku asked here, your thought on Santi Aldama.
Yeah, someone reported that today, didn't they?
And then other names, of course, are Naz Reid. We can probably not really talk about Miles Turner. I don't know that any of us believe that's actually going to happen. Would you agree with that, Sam?
No, Miles Turner's not going to happen to Detroit.
Real quick, what'd you think about that trade today? Speaking of, have you seen that trade yet?
I have, yeah. Makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
New Orleans gets another draft asset to potentially move up this year or to just go get another player. And, Indiana gets the flexibility of being able to move all of its 26, 28, 30, and 32 first round picks. Like they become much more flexible via trade through this deal. So yeah, makes total sense to me across the board for everybody.
So thoughts on Santi Aldama and Naz Reid? Like, do you think either are plausible, possible, and like, what would you think in terms of their fit with Detroit making sense?
I would probably rather do Bobby Portis than Santi Aldama, if only because I don't know how excited I would be about giving Santi the kind of 4-year deal that would make Memphis not match. I would imagine that deal is going to have to get pretty hefty in order to get him. If you decided to go the cap space route or if you decide to go the sign and trade route, Memphis is not this rebuilding team that people, might be expecting after the Desmond Bane trade. I think they're going to try and continue to, stay at the level until they can go out and like find another star trade, I would venture. Right. So I think that probably that might cost 470 to get him out of Memphis. That's a guess. Don't aggregate that. That's just like a total guess. Like 465, 470 maybe. Like I think they probably match a full mid-level, right? For Santi. That just makes sense for them at the end of the day. So yeah, I would guess that's going to be a big number that I'm not wildly excited about. Santi's a good player, to be clear. Like he's a guy that I think is a first rounder coming in out of Loyola, Maryland, like just a very skilled player who can really, really, play with the ball in his hands and can shoot it. And I think that Detroit could certainly use a guy like this, to be clear. I just really don't know what to do with the defense. And look, like he's played a funky role in Memphis where it feels like sometimes they have him at the 3, sometimes they have him at the 5. I would really have to go back and like watch them to figure out like what I thought his best kind of role was off the top of my head. I'm not really remembering because I'm working off of 3.5 hours or 4 hours of sleep right now. But I think that the skill level is interesting. Going out and trying to get a player like that is somewhat interesting. I just don't know if I would want to go for like a 4-year $70-ish million contract for a guy that I really do worry about a little bit defensively.
And Naz Reid, like, do you think Naz is on the move? I think I saw a quote today that like Finch said he expects both Julius and Naz to be back next year, but we know things can change. So Naz Reid makes sense. You know, obviously that would have, well, I guess it wouldn't have to be a sign and trade. I guess there's a mechanism to him coming in free agency. Detroit could get to the number. So thoughts on Naz Reid, I guess.
Yeah, what they can get up to 24 or so, right? Detroit.
It's actually less than that after the Cade, but I think everybody assumes if you needed to get to a number like that, right, you just trade Fontecchio. Like you call Brooklyn or somebody like that and, hey, will you take Fontecchio? And, you know, if you needed to attach, I don't know what it'd take to get off the Fontecchio money, but to get anything more,
I'm a little bit worried about how much it's going to cost to get off of deals this summer. Like there's just not a lot of there are some landing spots via trade exceptions, some landing spots, obviously via Brooklyn's cap space, but man, there are a lot of teams that might be trying to get off some money, and I don't know how easy it's going to be. Like getting off Fontecchio, like, might cost a first rounder, like might cost a late first rounder.
And so then at that point, it's not worth it. So let's just in a world where it makes sense, what are your thoughts on Naz in terms of just like fitting into the rotation in this roster?
Yeah, I love it. It's a great idea. I think it truly makes all the sense in the world to me. I'd love to see it. The issue is that, you know, again, like defensively questionable, but Naz's defensive questions are like a little bit different than Santi's to me, because Santi is a guy that just like gets physically overpowered. And I think that those are the guys that tend to struggle a little bit more consistently in the playoffs. Like Naz is slow. And like, if you go back and you watch, what series was it where he just got like Kuminga, like absolutely cooked him in space in the Golden State series, because they had Kuminga as like the small ball 4 and Naz had to deal with him. And that just didn't go super well. Right. But by and large, like as long as he gets like his body like on him, Naz tends to be like, okay, it's just that his feet are super slow and he's not a great rotational big on the interior either. I would probably, again, if I'm doing this, rather just like pay the, you know, second rounders or whatever it costs for me to get Bobby Portis maybe from the Bucks, who certainly need more trade flexibility here moving forward. And then just give Bobby Portis like a 6-month runway and see what it looks like in terms of an extension after that 6-month runway. I would rather go cheaper, I guess is my point, than go Naz Reid here, especially given the other things that you would have to do in order to get Naz Reid, such as probably lose Malik Beasley at the end of the day.
So CVJ says Jake LaRavia, Luke Cornett. What about Sam Merrill? I will tell you, we have talked Sam Merrill, and I have started pushing the Jake LaRavia narrative just a little bit. That's why he was strategically the first potential offseason acquisition for Detroit video breakdown I did. And I mean, he is going to be cheaper than the names we have brought up so far. And so those are really good names, CVJ.
Yeah, Sam Merrill, love him. Perfect fit for this roster. Absolutely perfect, in my opinion. Please do it. But honestly,
I want to warn you. You have all Pistons fans on your side right now after
I know,
crushing Troy Weaver and Monty Williams, and you're about to lose all of them with what you're about to say. I just want you to know.
Yeah, you know what I'm about to say is the funny thing.
I do know what you're about to say.
We know our brains, like each other's brains.
Just let O2 ask the next question.
I for what it's worth, like I do think Malik Beasley was more valuable than Sam Merrill this year. I'm not going to make that case. I do wonder if in the playoffs, Malik was okay defensively in the playoffs, like better than I expected. Honestly, this year, wouldn't say he was great necessarily. I think Sam is like actually a pretty good defender who like really actually holds up in the playoffs. Like he doesn't absolutely get crushed in the playoffs. Beasley I think you just have to keep Beasley on this team. So like, look, Sam Merrill can replace the Tim Hardaway Jr. piece of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it has to be one or the other. They had 2 great floor spacers this year on the Pistons. I would love to continue to have 2 great floor spacers on the Pistons if I was Trajan Langdon and folks. Like, it's not a one or the other situation. I think Sam Merrill is closer to Malik Beasley than he is like the tier down that people often put him with. I guess is what I would say. I navigated that great.
No, you did. You did. There was like sort of a circular, but still like on target. Like we all got the idea without you actually saying it. So that was good. That was good. Yeah. So one last offseason question before we get into draft. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but Ivy and Duren extensions. Is there one you want to extend? One you would punt? You punt both? Where are you on that now? And if you were to extend them, what figures are in your mind?
I would want one more year of Duren because we really have, what do we want to call it, guys? Like 3 months of positive, solid defensive play from Duren, somewhere in that ballpark.
Whatever games he played minus 25, because himself and Trajan Langdon will say that his first 25 games were not good.
Yeah. I would even say that the next 25 games were probably still not quite at the level that
Sure.
need him to be defensively. And then the final 30 games were pretty good. Like, I thought he was like pretty solid on that end. I would want one more year, I think, unless he's extending, like, what was the number we said, Bryce? Like 22 a year, 23 a year, something like that. Like a number that he like would almost be like comical to offer him. You know what I mean? You give him the offer and you see what he's willing to do with it. But I would want one more year, realistically, of Duren, given where I think he probably thinks his market is versus, what I need to see.
Real quick, Sam, we talked ourselves into also Mark Williams and Walker Kessler are also up for their rookie extensions.
Yeah.
And we talked about how like one of those guys could eventually set the market for the other guys.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about that, like that trio there, because I think this is a important piece of this, obviously, right? Like Walker Kessler is the best of those three right now at basketball. Like I don't even know that that's arguable, but Utah has like an 11 or 13 or something $1 million cap hold on him going into next offseason. And they can really like have a ton of space to be able to play with. So while under normal circumstances, I think that he would be an obvious trade or an obvious extension candidate. I do wonder if Utah kind of lowballs him a little bit, right? In Charlotte's case, we know that Mark Williams obviously just failed this physical with the Lakers last year.
What do we actually know about Mark Williams, Sam? Do we actually know anything?
Oh, we know that he's really bad on defense, and we know that he's a great rebounder, and we know that he's very long and can finish at the rim. But how impactful is that on like winning basketball? Like he needs to improve on defense before I give him any money, especially given the injury worries that continue to just pop up with him. So I don't know if he's going to set the market for a Duren extension. Really, I think that Duren is probably the most likely of those three to set the market, in all honesty. And again, if I'm the Pistons, I kind of just made the case that I would want some more information if I was them. So it's almost like this weird game of chicken where I kind of think that the teams all have some pretty real leverage here against all three of these guys. And I don't know what to expect in terms of who actually extends and who doesn't of that group. I mean, Omari, I think you were about to ask about Ivy, right?
You like Ivy, and it sounds like you would.
I love him.
And there's a number you're probably thinking that you would lock him in this summer if you could, seems like.
I mean, if I'm Detroit, I'm coming in pretty low to start, but I would probably also be willing to go to a number a little bit higher. Maybe, I don't know what Detroit's willing to go to, I should say. Like, I'd probably be willing to go to like 26, 27 for Ivy this summer if I was them, because if it goes well for Ivy next year, he's getting a bag in restricted free agency, especially like, again, Utah has cap space. They need some young talent. If Jaden Ivey averages like 23, 24 points a game next year, Utah should give him a crazy amount of money, right? Like, Brooklyn, I would guess, is still going to have cap space next summer. I would guess that they're going to keep rolling this over and continuing to maintain flexibility so that they can be, a real player in the star market. If they do that and like don't do something crazy like, Josh Giddey or something like that, like they're a great fit for Jaden Ivey. And honestly, he's probably a great fit with Josh Giddey, right? So like maybe it just is what it is, right? Like, I think that if it goes really well for Ivy, there's a world where you're paying substantially more for Ivy next off season than you would be right now. With Duren, I do wonder that, like, okay, you're probably paying Duren 23, 24. I don't think anybody's going to give Duren more than 30, right? So like the delta is just a little bit smaller and it's probably worth playing out. With Ivy, to me, the delta's like pretty big, I would guess, between, okay, if this goes well and we have him locked in now at 25, 26 a year, 24 a year, we're in an amazing position here moving forward. If it goes poorly, and by that for the team, I say that he doesn't extend and he plays incredibly well. I mean, you might be looking at 40 million a year for him, right? So I almost think that the incentives bear out a little bit more toward let's try and get a deal done with Ivy as opposed to Duren right now. But maybe that's me having a higher evaluation on Jaden Ivey at the end of the day too. I love Jaden Ivey and think he's going to be a real player in the NBA. And, you know, you look at the value of rim pressure, you look at the value of scoring, it continues to just rise and rise. If you can genuinely actually get the rim pressure, and he can do that.
All right, let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to dive into the NBA draft. Obviously, Sam has his NBA draft guide, which you guys should check out. Let you know everything you need to know about the NBA draft in totality. We're going to ask him a little bit about that. And then obviously names around pick 37 for the Pistons. We'll get into that right after this.
All right, we are back with segment 3, and we are going to go into the draft, which, of course, Sam is one of the foremost draft experts and has a draft guide that y'all should check out that is approximately 500,000 words. Like, I don't know if that's too high or too low, but definitely check that out. Sam, I want to open this up sort of broadly with just the second round landscape. Obviously, with NIL really poaching a lot of guys compared to past drafts. Just overall, just like how good do you think the 37th pick is? Like, do you think that that's weaker than usual? Do you think that it could be tough to maybe get some guys to commit to the salary you want, which you hinted at earlier? How do you envision that spot for the Pistons overall?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that that's like right at the edge of the like real drop off here. I would guess that there is a player that I think is worth a guaranteed deal available at 37, but right now I have 36 guys that are that level. I'm thinking about jumping Sion James and Elijah Martin into that guaranteed group, but it's going to be close. Like I'm updating, I've mentioned this on my show with Bryce, like I'm updating the draft guide here one final time just to account for measurements for Ben Suraf, Hugo Gonzalez, everything like that. Like a couple of guys are going to jump up the board a little bit. And then particularly, I wonder if I kind of look at like somebody like Sion James or a Elijah Martin or somebody like that to kind of get into that bucket and end up with 38 guarantee guys as opposed to 36. It's tough, guys. It's, you know, the NIL marketplace has absolutely made it so guys stay in school, right? Tahad Pettiford would absolutely be in the draft if it wasn't for the NIL marketplace. Alex Condon would probably be in the draft. Yaxel Lundeborg would 100% be in the draft if it wasn't for like the substantial amount of money he's going to be making from Michigan next season. So I look at all of this and think that, you know, it's probably a little bit less valuable than what it normally is. I mean, I can't remember. I talk about this on our show, Bryce, or I talk about it on the Athletic NBA show, but like it has a chance. Have you clocked yet, Bryce, that it has a chance to be worse next year?
I have not. I started putting some stuff together, but it was mostly just like first round stuff.
So like it has a chance to be better. I want to be clear. We're going to see how the house settlement stuff works out. We're going to see how the rev share stuff works out. This NIL portal marketplace stuff and like private invest, like there are so many variables right now that we know nothing about. But if the money is similar to what it is this year in college basketball next year, and you know, I think everybody's trying to get a lid back on it right now in college sports. Like if you hear, you know, Kansas's AD today came out and said, we're going to have like 5.5 million to spend on our college basketball roster next year. I mean, like guys, their team spending like 12 million a year on their college roster right now. You know what I mean? If Georgetown can spend 12 million on a college basketball roster because they make a certain amount of money because they don't have football, so they can like spend more of their 20 million or whatever money they get from the rev share into men's basketball. Do you think the SEC is just going to sit back and let Georgetown and, you know, these other Big East schools poach all of their players? Like, absolutely not. Like, they're going to figure out a way to get back to the Wild West, and we're going to have like bags under bleachers, and you know we're gonna have people going to dinner and, you know, leaving with pockets full. Like it's gonna be wild again.
We're gonna give a kid a tractor. We gave a kid a tractor. Omari, do you know the movie? God,
this is not coming to mind.
Ricky Rowe.
For what it's worth, I don't know if I know this movie,
Yes,
Brian.
Shaq's in it. Penny's in it.
Oh, yeah, I do. It's Blue Chips. Yeah.
Blue Chips. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that gave it away. Shaq and Penny.
So much stuff has a chance to like play itself out over the next year. We don't know what it's going to be, but like Bryce, part of the reason that this second round is even as strong as it is that there are COVID year kids.
Yeah.
Like, so Cam Jones would be in this draft no matter what, because he was a 4-year guy, but John Tonje, Sion James, Elijah Martin, Janai Broom, Bryce Williams, Chaz Lanier, Brooks Barnheiser, Micah Peavy, Max Shulga, Kobe Brea, Vlad Golden. Every college player that I have ranked from 38 to 51 are taking advantage of a COVID year. So if you take all of those guys away, like I would have Hunter Salas at like 40. I would have Lucky Olbrich at 41. You know what I mean? Like that would be the level of the draft that we would have. And like I have Lucky Olbrich as like a borderline, like I have him as a two-way guy. Like I'd love to stash Lucky Olbrich, but like Jemai Meshack would be in my top 50, and I'm not sure that he should get a two-way.
That's your guy, Sam. I can't believe that. That's blasphemy.
I love Jemai Meshack. He is one of the great defenders in this draft class, like one of the truly unbelievable defenders. Like he might be one of the 20 best defenders on planet Earth right now. And I am not exaggerating when I say that. He is unbelievable on that end of the court,
but
he can't offense like full scale right now. He's a guard who like they didn't seem to feel very comfortable when he dribbled the ball. So I love him. I want him to have success. And if he ever shoots it, he's definitely an NBA player to me. But like that's the kind of, that's where we might be next year. This year, we at least have the benefit of the COVID kids.
All right. Let me ask you about another kid that you absolutely love. So I know you're going to like this. Brennan Crew asks, if Fleming drops to 29 like you have in your mock, could you see a fit with the Pistons if they decide to move up from 37? And Dax Hoop says, if Fleming does drop to 29 like you have in your mock, could you see? So what are your thoughts about Rasheer Fleming?
I would love him at 37. I'll say that. Like genuinely, I would love him at 37. I would be willing to move up to like probably 32 even to get Rasheer Fleming. I don't really see him as like a guy to trade up into the first round for. I don't love the feel for the game stuff. But the funny thing is that the player I've compared him to for the last few months is a guy that I feel like I've said his name 45 times on this episode, Bobby Portis. Like it's very similar to me in terms of guy that, you know, can step away and shoot a little bit. Not the most like instinctual, intuitive player on the court in terms of his defensive rotations, can be a little bit foul prone, right? Bobby can certainly play a little bit physically. Doesn't really see the court all that well as a passer or playmaker. Doesn't, I would argue, like process it super well, but is tough, is physical, has an NBA frame, super athlete, and can make it work that way. You know what I mean? Like, I would love Rasheer Fleming at 37 for the Pistons if he got there. And like, if they had to move up to 31 and like get to the turn or something, I'd totally be willing to do that if I was them.
Real quick before O2 asks you about some other names, what do you think it would take to get into the first round? Doesn't have to be for Rasheer. Let's just say there's a dude that they love and it's one of the Brooklyn firsts or something like that. What do you think that takes? Like, can you get there without a future first? Can you package enough seconds? Does it have to be somewhat like are we talking Sasser to get there? What is it going to take? Because I always caveat this conversation with, I'm not giving up a future first to get back, like to make this move.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't give up a future first. I mean, what they have their 2026 second out already. They have, what are they? They're like +6 or so in second rounders, something like that.
Yeah, they're plus in second rounders. They have all their first now after this year. They control all of their own, and then they're plus in the second rounders.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're +8 in second round, or no, +7 in second rounders, it looks like. I would guess it would cost 37 and 2 to 3 second rounders to get up, to get up to 27. I say 27 just because Brooklyn has a million of these things. So like it would make sense for them to be willing to do this. I would say, yeah, like probably 2 to 3 second rounders on top of 37. Because last year, Oklahoma City, I think paid 4 seconds to get Dylan Jones.
I think it was 5, but I don't know if any of them were in that class, and they were moving in. They weren't moving up. Like they literally took 5 seconds and turned it into a first at the end. So 4 probably makes sense if you're giving somebody 37 with 3 others. So
Bryce, I haven't thought about this, and I don't know, Omari, if you've thought about the draft enough to be able to answer this question, so I'm sorry. Is there anybody that you would target at 20? Like, is there a player that you like for the Pistons at 27?
I mean, Maxime Renault is my favorite name for them. If it took them getting to 27 to do it, like if they have the intel and know what the board is going to be, he's the one name I would be willing to go up there. Another one, like Pinda, is kind of interesting because I think Pinda would fit into a rotation situation that makes a lot of sense for them as well. So those are kind of the two names I think, Sam, that I would do that for.
Yeah, I agree. I'm totally there. That sounds great to me. Renault, I would probably do 4 seconds for Renault if I was them.
What do you like about Renault's fit with the Pistons? Because that's a guy we've talked about on here, and one of the names I was going to bring up. What stands out about him?
Just an awesome, skilled basketball player with the ball in his hands as much as anything. Like, I think I'm a little bit lower on him than, like, you have him as a clear first rounder, Bryce, right?
I have him in my first round tier. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I have him at 31. Like, I'm just like a little bit lower on him, but just like super, super skilled. Took more pick and pop threes than any player in college basketball this season. Loves to like slip and like run like slide actions into pick and pop. He has really good footwork, can get balanced and organized quickly, then can attack closeouts off of those pick and pop opportunities, makes threes off of relocations, real spot shooter, very, very skilled ball handler, can pass the ball at a high level, finishes at the rim with great touch, like not a leaper in any way, shape or form, but, made 66% of his attempts at the rim in the half court last year, 60% of his layups, which is a really strong number for a 7-footer, great little like mini hook game as well. Can hit like cross corner kickouts off of doubles in a, genuine way. Positional rebounder, like awesome. Boxes out at a high level. The other thing that just generally I will note about Renault that I really, really like is that this is a kid that is like incredibly, incredibly intelligent, like literally grew up in France, like thinking he was just going to be like a scientist. You know what I mean? And didn't really go, I believe, to like any of the like basketball academies, right? Like, ONCEP is the big academy in France, right? All of the guys that you expect, to have played at ONCEP have played at ONCEP, right? Like most of the high level prospects go there. He didn't really do that. Like he just went to like Henry IV, which is this incredible, like prestigious high school in Paris. It's prestigious academically. Like it has nothing to do with basketball. That's how he ends up at Stanford. Like, do you know how hard it is to get international kids that are athletes into Stanford? Right? Like it's not trust me, I've gone through, I haven't gone through it personally, but like I've, been talking to people from Australia, like trying to figure out ways to like get kids into Stanford before it's hard. And I think that because of that, his developmental cycle is probably a little bit later than some. And if you look at the way that he's improved every single season in college basketball, 4 points a game as a freshman, 9 points a game and 6 rebounds as a sophomore, 16 points and 9 rebounds as a junior, 20 and 11 as a senior, continues to grow, continues to get better. I would genuinely love a Maxime Renault pick for the Pistons. Like he is the exact kind of player we've been talking about, like going to get like a spacing big to see what it looks like. Home run for me for the Pistons if they were to move up and grab him.
Stephen P. asked, how does the rotation look like with Renault? My thought is he's like your third big. He takes all of the Paul Reed minutes that they had last year. Quick question. Do you think him and Isaiah Stewart could share the floor at times in a second unit?
I actually do, because Renault has some like real, I'm going to have to stop and think about this a little bit more in terms of foot speed. You'd have to construct lineups on the perimeter around them that are quite fast. Like I would want to play Asar. I would probably want to play Asar and Ivy in like bench lineups with those guys.
For what it's worth, I think that's incredible. Like we talk about Cade with the stretch big. The thing we don't mention enough is also Asar playing with the stretch big. Now, the problem is if Stewart's also on the floor, it eliminates that idea a little bit. But all right. So I mentioned Pinda. I saw a few people in the chat were a little unsure about that. Wes really likes Pinda, but doesn't think he's going to be there to trade up. What do you think about Pinda? And what do you think about the potential of him being in a range to trade up for the Pistons?
I mean, I think you probably have to get to 425-ish for Penda. I mean, maybe he goes earlier than that, and this is just like a no, questions asked thing, but I think probably not, honestly. I think it's going to be hard. I think it's probably going to be a little bit harder to get him than Reynaud. The thing with Penda is that, like, he's a pretty attractive player for teams that might have to stash. Like, Oklahoma City might have to stash this year just because they have such a loaded roster and they have 15 as well. So he's a guy that, like, would make a ton of sense for them. These big wings that can, like, dribble, pass, shoot in theory and then also defend and process, like, they tend to go higher than what people expect. So, Penda is a guy that teams, that theoretically can do that I really love. I have him at like 15 or so, but that can, like, actually do these things, but teams are a little bit questionable on because they're questionable on the frame. They're questionable on the overall, just like shooting ability. There's just like a lot of stuff that they have some questions about here with Penda, but I think it'd be easier to go up and get Reynaud would be my guess.
People are starting to recognize the hat you chose to wear for this podcast.
Purposely, folks.
And there goes all of your goodwill. It's just gone. So, all right, Sam, listen, we're used to recording for like 5.5 hours. So an hour and 10 minutes is nothing for us, but we want to be respectful of your time, all of our time. O2 has a few more names he wants to throw at you. And then
I love it.
We'll let you get on with your start of your day there in Australia, and we'll get on with our evening. So, O2, hit him with a few of the names.
Yeah, just a couple of the wings who could be there at 37. Briefly, Drake Powell and Chaz Lanier. What kind of sticks out about those guys, and how do you like them in that range?
So I don't think Powell will be there. I'm just going to say that up front. I mean, he's a great defender. Another guy that, like, kind of struggles to offense right now, like, can't really dribble at a super high level in college, at least. Showed some transition stuff in high school that you believe, like, he could really grow into, but by and large was not a great offensive player. Lanier is kind of the antithesis of that. Like, Lanier is a monster shooter. He was a guy that, like, grew on me throughout the process in a real way. I think he'd be a great option as a shooting, bet in the second round, like real movement shooter at the end of the day. Like, very, very serious movement shooter. Took more shots off of screens this year than any player in the country, averaging 4.6 per game. Took more threes off screens per game than all but 4 players nationally. A lot of Lanier's shots were in the mid-range, actually. Like, they would run him off of these little, like, pin downs and stuff to get him into the mid-range, and he'd take, like, little threes. Drilled 45% of his mid-range shots off of movement. Really sharp relocating into dangerous areas. Drilled 44% of his spot-up threes this year. Drilled 36% of his pull-up threes this year. Just a lightning shooter. I just don't know if he can do anything else, but, like, a serious shooter for sure.
And then Wes wanted to ask about Markovic. What are your thoughts on Markovic? This range, would this be a little bit early for you? What are your thoughts with him?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit lower on him. I don't love the frame. I think he's, like, kind of in between positions a little bit, but maybe it is, fairly similar to a Santi Aldama, in terms of style. I weirdly think that Santi has, like, a lower center of gravity than what Markovic does, and neither of them deal well with contact because neither of them are all that strong. But maybe I think Markovic is, like, a great stash option. Like, he's probably the best, like, stash option in the second round this year for sure. But I would love to leave him overseas for another year to continue to, like, develop physically, in my opinion, as opposed to, like, bringing him over immediately. There are real skills, can shoot it, can pass it, really processes the game at a super high level. But, when I saw him in person at Hoop Summit for a week, and it just didn't seem quite ready for the physicality yet that it was going to take.
All right. I will say a name I've kind of come around on here, especially at 37, is Alex Tui. I think I would be happy with that name. Last thing, Sam, we'll get you out of here on this, because I think it was a fun question that Wes put in the outline. You do the draft guide. O2 made the joke earlier about 500,000 words. You can tell us how many words it actually is, because it will be impressive. But what is your process? When does that start? How do you do that? How do you, like, build up throughout the year? Like, just give us the rundown of how the draft guide comes together, because with all due respect to No Ceilings, who we will have on next week, and you and I both love those guys. We talk about it all the Max, Steven, you're doing this solo. A lot of other draft guides people see are a collection of different people, right? You wrote every single word in this draft guide, and that's big time. So process, give us the word count, all of that.
Well, I mean, Bryce, like, I'm pretty psychotic about watching tape and taking notes and everything like that. So I think the thing that I got better at this year was, like, being able to, as I'm, watching games, writing notes in the form of like, okay, this is something that can be usable in the draft guide. You know what I mean? And I'll, sit down and watch like four games at a time with a prospect sometimes, or I'll just be watching, one game, right? Like it just depends on what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve at that moment. Am I trying to figure out Duke's guys? Am I trying to figure out Chaz Lanier? Am I trying to figure out some sleeper, or am I trying to figure out Thomas Sorber? This year, I probably spent more time on the top guys than I have previously. I think that I probably spent less time on the second round guys than I have previously, which could be a statement of the fact that like the second round is a little bit weaker this year. But I think more I tried to spend my time on the elite guys by and large. In terms of the process of writing it, it was like 160,000 words. It's the longest it's ever been. 198 pages this year. I really start writing profiles. Like I've had the Ryan Kalkbrenner profile written for a year and a half, right? Because we've known what Ryan Kalkbrenner is. I certainly update it throughout the year. Like Ryan started to show some, like he had a drive against Connecticut in the Big East tournament where I was like, wait, he just like attacked a closeout and like one hand gathered into like a finger roll layup against Samson Johnson. Like what just happened here? So like none of these profiles are locked, but like for the most part, I've had the Ryan Kalkbrenner profile written for a year and a half. Right. I've had Alex Caravan written for a year and a half, and he'll be in this thing next year, right? Not a year and a half, probably a year for Caravan. But like it starts that early, right? Like I will, I wrote a decent amount of Ace Bailey in the preseason. I wrote a decent amount of, Dylan Harper in the preseason. And like I wrote a decent amount of Cooper in the preseason. All of those profiles I had to adjust like throughout the course of the season for sure. But this thing is like I start this thing in the preseason and really try and like get this thing going. And then we go from there on it.
Last thing, YouTube says, is this just your opinion or is this intel you gather from scouts and all of your connections, or equally split?
A good question. The scouting is probably more my opinion. It's hard, man. Like I'm on the phone with people like all day. You know what I mean? I'm sure that there's opinions that like filter through into my brain. You know what I mean? Like I am constantly trying to figure out like, okay, so I'm asking people about, Trey Johnson. Like I've probably asked 25 NBA people throughout the year what they think of Trey Johnson and like tried to like, figure him out throughout the course of the season. I've probably asked, the same number of people about Common Maluwatch throughout the year. You know what I mean? Like it could be more, honestly. I'm sure that there is some of that filters through, but like when I'm going through and scouting, like I'm probably getting cues from like conversations I've had on what to watch and like what people think matters and things like that. But, at the end of the day, like I am scouting and like I'm doing this on my own as well. Like the opinions are mine, but it's a weird blend. You know what I mean? Like it's not all one thing. It's not all another thing. Certainly the board is mine. There's no, I would argue that like there are probably precious few teams that have Cedric Howard at 10, right? There are teams that have him in the lottery, but 10 is probably like fairly aggressive. And there are very few teams I've talked to that are going to have Jeremiah Fears at 19, right? It's a combination of factors, I would say, at the end of the day. But the scouting itself is mostly me. The ranking is mostly me, but still probably the opinion is infiltrated by the conversations I have throughout the year.
All right, Sam, we appreciate you. We thank you. Please let everybody know where they can find you if they're not already following you, where they can find the draft guide, and if they're not listening to the Game Theory podcast, where they can find that.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. Really enjoy that place. It's fun to work there. Yeah, really, the draft guide is there. It's live. I will have a mock draft early next week that will keep getting updated throughout. Working on a few things for the end of this week as well. Trying to think what else I've got. I mean, Game Theory, where Bryce is on, I guess that's the thing. We have like 45,000 subscribers over there. We're doing a great job, Bryce, of just like continuing to add people. I'm so appreciative of that little community we've built that is like weirdly no longer all that little. I realize more and more. So, I appreciate all of you guys immensely for coming and hanging out and just being willing to have a fun time with Bryce and I going live after games, or Andrew and I talking about basketball, whatever it is. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out for sure.
All right. Next week, guys, we have a really fun episode. We're going to bring on the No Ceilings guys, Maxwell Kyle and Steven, we're going to do a mock draft 1 through 25 pre-recording, and then we're going to jump on and we're going to start at pick 26. So we're essentially going to do 26 to 40 that allows you guys, okay, these are the names that are left. These are the names the Pistons could trade up for. Here's how they're going off the board. Obviously, we'll settle in at 37 and draft somebody and really talk about it and all of that. So a kind of a creative way to do a mock draft that gets us to the Pistons pick much faster. So 1 through 25 will be done. I'll rattle it off real fast. We'll start at 26, go to 40, and we'll be able to get those guys on here to talk about all the prospects in that range. So that'll be a lot of fun next week. Yes, love the shout outs.
Can I just say real quick? That's a great idea, Bryce. Like, I don't know if you or Omari thought of that. It was probably Omari, let's be honest. But like, you know, that's a really good idea.
Wes, who came up with the idea? And do not put your hands up in the air. I have the receipts to prove it. I don't come up with very smart things very often, but I was pretty proud of this idea, Sam.
West
so
strong.
thank you.
I'll give it to Bryce.
Hey, also, I'm beating Omari in trivia recently too, and so O2 owes me a Vegas supper here in about a month. So I had a nice comeback there. So thank you again, Sam. Come back next week with us for that one, guys. O2, take it away, my guy.
Sam, as always, we greatly appreciate you for having us on. We greatly appreciate you joining us.
Oh, dude, really I stumble through intros every day, Omari. You're good.
Man, I said that completely the opposite. We thank you so much for joining us and breaking down the Pistons offseason and draft. And with that, I will close this out. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, and big thanks to Wes Davenport, as always. And we will see you all next Monday.